Saying thank you to Vasudevji and Vaniji. As always, it is pleasure for me to address the group of spiritual seekers under the banner of Meditation and Study Circle, Bangalore. We have this topic from Brihadaaranyaka Upanishad. Let me begin with the prayer that is associated with the Upanishads of Shukla Yajurveda, Brihadaaranyaka also being from Shukla Yajurveda. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. As the very peace invocation says it all, there is a certain fullness, Purnam, that is to be discovered by every one of us because of thoughts that have risen from ignorance. We make the mistake of looking at ourselves as Apurna, looking at this world as Apurna, which means incomplete and utterly unsatisfactory. We hold ourselves with some disregard, we hold the world with some disregard, and as a result, we suffer. Vedanta is about awakening us to a different consciousness where we clearly see Purnatva alone is the truth. Mind you, this recognition of Purnatva, completeness, is in no way the same as saying, I don't have to do anything, let me lie back and idle away. To connect either idleness or activity to spiritual wisdom is both false. Spiritual wisdom neither makes you lazy nor makes you run all the time. It is something beyond karma and akarma. Spiritual wisdom is about not limiting our understanding to any rigid concept. An enlightened person could be very active 24/7 or could be lying like an ajagara, a python. It's called ajagara vritti. We are not to decide on his or her illumination. Yap pashyati sa pashyati. Someone who is able to see the greatness of an illumined person is able to see it. It cannot be subjected to some simple yardsticks. We are not to judge ourselves too. The moment we judge, that is our fall. We actually are a certain field of infinite possibilities. As Deepak Chopra created an expression decades ago. Purnamadaha Purnamidam thus points out the field of infinite possibilities. No matter what has happened so far in life, no matter what is going to happen in future, at this moment, we have the capacity, the potential to break free of any self-imposed limitations. The state of no self-imposed limitations is Purnam. Now, leave alone you and me in this 21st century, not much exposed to Veda and Vedanta. Even great scholars like Balaaki in the second chapter, the very first Brahmana, Brahmana means a section. So, Dvitiya Adhyaya Pratamam Brahmanam, second chapter, the first section, is named Ajatashatru Brahmanam. This section on Ajatashatru may also be called Gargya Brahmanam because the student here happens to be Gargya, someone born in the lineage of Garga, and he is called Balaki also. The disciple here is the son of Balaka. A lady called Balaka had a scholarly son, Balaki. Now, he is Gargya, he is Balaki, and then there is an adjective for him, Drupta Balaki. What is this Drupta? Darpa, pride, arrogance, a certain sense of I know it all. Drupta Balaki, born to a family of Vedic scholars for generations, he thought he knew it all. And he approaches King Ajatashatru, thinking he would teach the king Ajatashatru. But very soon, this Drupta Balaki, proud Balaki, realizes, in spite of his Brahminical background, alas, he doesn't yet know that Supreme Brahman. And in spite of his Kshatriya background, King Ajatashatru knew what the pure, unconditioned Brahman is. Therefore, while in the beginning Balaki is the teacher and Ajatashatru is the student, it ends with Ajatashatru becoming the true teacher and Balaki learning from Ajatashatru. Therefore, more appropriately, this section is called Ajatashatru Brahmanam. Only 20 verses make this first Brahmanam, Ajatashatru Brahmanam of Dvitiya Adhyaya of Brihadaaranyaka Upanishad from Shukla Yajurveda. In these 20 mantras, however, there is a progression from appreciation of conditioned Brahman to the understanding of unconditioned Brahman. Conditioned Brahman, Saguna Brahma, Sakara Brahma, Savishesha Brahma, call it as you may, can only bless us with temporal benefits. We may live long, we may be very healthy, we may have supernatural powers, we may walk on water, we may read somebody's mind, we may be equipped with many things, but none of them will stay forever with us. Ayaram Gayaram, things come and things go. If one wants lasting peace, then one must know Nirguna Brahma, Nirvishesha Brahma, Nirakara Brahma, the unconditioned Brahman. Therefore, these 20 verses or mantras in the first section of the second chapter of the Brihadaaranyaka Upanishad have a central message, and that is rise above conditioned Brahma to have glimpses of unconditioned Brahma. This chapter 2 begins with this section. Chapter 2, for that matter, has 6 Brahmanas or sections, something like above 60 mantras, and the very first one is the longest, 20 mantras. In these 20 mantras, we have the story. Let's read what the story is. Om Drupta Balakihi ha Anuchanaha Gargyaha Asa. Anuchana means very good in speaking, very good in talking, very good in instructing anybody. Many of you have learned the mantra Vedamanuchya Acharyonte Vasina Manushasti Satyam Vada Dharmanchara from Taittiriya Upanishad. Vedam Anuchya. The great teachers, the great rishis taught, instructed, spoke on the Vedas, and then gave parting instructions to their students, known as convocation address. That portion in Shikshavalli of Taittiriya Upanishad goes on to say, speak truth, live virtuously, etc. Anuchya, and here you have Anuchanaha. Anuchanaha is someone eminently capable of instructing. Therefore, this Drupta Balaki probably had received a lot of pats, lot of encouragement, lot of praise from his teachers in the Gurukula where he had gone. So he was puffed up with the sense of, I know it all. If I don't know, who else on this earth would know? Therefore, let me go and teach the king of the country. सह उवाच अजातशत्रुं काश्यं ब्रह्मते ब्रवाणी इति. The section begins with a bang. A Brahmana going to a Kshatriya and with chest up saying, "O king, let me teach you Brahman." And the king, to begin with, was indeed impressed by the radiance on the face of this Vedic scholar, by his self-confidence, by his general personality. And the king, feeling so good, says, "You are coming to me as in the olden days, great scholars went to King Janaka. So you are looking at me as though I am another Janaka. And to be compared with Janaka, to be looked at like King Janaka of the olden days is such an honor. Ajatashatru is not Janaka, but very soon we will see he is no less either. He says, I am now looked at by you, and the way you have approached me, people looking at our dialogue will say about me, another Janaka here as the king of our country at this time. Janako Janakaha iti Janaha Dhavanti. Shankaracharya says this Janako Janakaha means Janako Ditsuhu, Janako Shushrushuhu. King Janaka in the olden days was known for generously giving gifts. And King Janaka of olden days, much before Ajatashatru, was known for Shushrushu, that is, always being eager to gain Vedantic wisdom. And here is Ajatashatru, who is Janaka in terms of giving, who is Janaka in terms of wanting to learn. Wow, we have another Janaka here. Like we the students of Swami Chinmayananda were so elevated by his work, we would look at him as the second Vivekananda of our country. So to look at our Guru as second Vivekananda is something wonderful. Likewise, to look at Ajatashatru as a second Janaka of the country was also most wonderful, most encouraging. Now begins a portion from second mantra, I would say, all the way till about till about 13th mantra. So second mantra to 13th mantra. 12 mantras, one after another, the visiting Vedic scholar Drupta Balaki says to the king Ajatashatru what Supreme Brahman is. But alas, every explanation that Balaki gives falls flat before King Ajatashatru. He says, the divine principle in Aditya, the sun, is Brahman. Do upasana on it. Ajatashatru says, oh, You have come all the way to teach me on the Purusha, the divine truth in Aditya. Well, I already know it. I know that Upasana. I know about visualizing the image of that divine being. I know what benefits we get, how it will make us our personality shine with certain extra powers, prowess, radiance, etc. The visiting Vedic scholar is really embarrassed. Oh, really? I thought he did not know. He already knows about Adityasta Purusha. He says Chandre Purusha, in the moon. Same as before, Ajatashatru says, I know it all. Then comes in lightning, then comes in Akasha space, in Vayu, in Agni, in water, Jalatattva, and so on and so forth. In a mirror, in a sound. Look at the imagination and the extent of how they took upasana to various levels. One of them is when a man walks, as he is walking away from you, man goes farther and farther, and after some time, you hear just the sound of his steps. He has moved away. The sound that is behind a man who has walked away, Shabda. In that, there is certain truth to be meditated upon. Most of you know what Upasana is. Upasana is Nikrishta Vastuni Utkrishta Buddhi. A stone can be taken as Shalagrama. Another stone could be taken as Shivalinga. A stone is elevated to the great heights of Lord Shiva or Lord Vishnu. So, in directions, in darkness or in the shade, you have shade of a pole. In that shade, in that shadow, the upasana is possible. Upasana is a mental exercise where taking the support of some alambana, some figure, some symbol, some sound, some concept, the human mind can go to great heights of concentration, purity, and so on. In fact, one of the sad aspects of modern civilization is 99.99% of us are not into any upasana. During our younger days, we did not do enough Gayatri. As we got older, we did not do enough satsang. As we got even older, we do not have a proper Ishta Devata too. Our mind wanders all over. Our mind lacks. Our mind does not have the strength of being able to hold one thought. It just hops from one point to another, and then we complain. We have no peace of mind. How can we have peace of mind when from early childhood we have not trained our mind to sit, to stay at one place? Unlike the present scenario, in the good old days, Vedic scholars would spend hours and hours training their mind. Swami Vivekananda had said at some point that if I were to get a chance again to go back to my teenage years, I would take a year off, not study during that year science or mathematics, English or Bengali. I would take a year off and just train my mind to hold on to one thing to the exclusion of everything else. I will train my body and mind to be extremely fit and fine, then come back to school education, come back to formal education. Vivekananda had expressed such a view. Upasana was exactly meant for those things. Anyway, after some 11 locations where a divine principle could be visualized as per the guidance of Vedic literature, Balaki says to Ajatashatru, even internally, in our eyes, in our mind, in our skin, in our breath, in our speech, in our semen, in our heart, in our inner vital layers, and in the ears, even in the sense of I don't know, it is possible to visualize divinity, says Balaki. That takes the number of locations or supports for Brahmajnana that Balaki talks about to 21. In military parlance, there is an expression 21 gun salute. If a super very important person comes, soldiers send a bullet to the air, down, 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 21 times. 21 gun salute. Balaki gives to Ajatashatru a 21 gun salute of 21 pointers to what the Supreme Brahman is. As though that is not enough, he adds a 22nd. Buddhistaha Purushaha. Kasya buddhi buddhau stitaha prajapatehe buddhau stitaha. This whole universe is presided over by a divine personality, Prajapati. In the intellect of Prajapati, there is a certain shining principle. That is Brahman. Ajatashatru listens to everything with great patience. I should say, not just patience, with sympathy, with compassion for this Brahmin. For generations, his father, his grandfather, his great grandfather, his great grandfather's father were all Vedic scholars. And he too is born with those sanskaras, with that atmosphere, environment, and has learnt a lot of things. But alas, he does not know that Brahma which can bring moksha. Moksha comes to us only through unconditioned Brahma. By the way, this whole story is given not just for the sake of giving a story. In the Chandogya Upanishad and other places also, it is said, Acharyavan Purusho Veda. Brahma Vidya is so sukshma that only someone who has a competent teacher to guide him will get Brahma Vidya. Acharyavan Purusho Veda. Sapurusha eva Veda yasya kopi acharya bhavati. In this story, Balaki, in spite of being born into an illustrious Vedic scholar's house, had missed the mark. But the good news is his punya karma brings him to Ajatashatru. Ajatashatru is a competent acharya here, and Balaki's life becomes blessed. Secondly, certain achara vidhi, certain rules of conduct are also conveyed by this story. Like when Ajatashatru dismisses all the proposals made by Balaki with respect to what Brahman is, Balaki could have just got up and said, Okay, king, I can't teach you. Thank you. Bye bye. He could have just gone away. But he sets a glorious example of right conduct. When we don't know and when we meet somebody who knows, right conduct involves our bowing down and asking that other person, please instruct me. That is how in the 14th mantra we have Balaki saying to King Ajatashatru, Upatva Yani. Vedic grammar, in modern grammar it would be Tvam Upayani. Upayani, upayana, upagamana, upasadana means approaching a teacher with the required mental outlook, being ready to learn. Like Sri Krishna puts it in Bhagavad Gita, Upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha tadviddi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam. Arjuna, go to competent teachers, serve them, bow down before them, ask them questions at the right time, and they will not let you down. They will instruct you. Now, Ajatashatru, without any previous indication, turns out to be a competent guru for Balaki. And Balaki, with all humility, more than all that Vedic scholarship, this transparency, this honesty, and this humility makes Balaki an excellent Brahmana. Sattva is manifest in openness of the mind and being ready to accept truth as it is. Upatvayani, O King Ajatashatru, may I now approach you, taking you to be my teacher. Upasadana, Guru Upasadana is implied here. Ajatashatru is taken aback. On one hand, Ajatashatru is disappointed at the lack of clear knowledge in Balaki. But now, looking at the purity of mind of this Brahmana who accepted defeat, Ajatashatru is very impressed. Before he begins to instruct Balaki, Ajatashatru says, by the way, this is very odd. Pratilomam cha etad. Anuloma and pratiloma are two words. Anuloma means to be in the sequence as things have to be. In the right sequence is anuloma. Viloma or pratiloma is opposite sequence. It is a reversal of roles. Like it is said in some Shiva Purana or some such work, there was a time when rather than Shiva instructing son Kartikeya or Skanda, Kartikeya, Muruga, Shanmuka, Subramanya instructs Shiva. So he is called Guru Guha at that time. Reversal of roles. Rather than a father instructing a son, look at it. A son is instructing the father. Like that, rather than a Vaidika Brahmana instructing a Kshatriya Raja here gets ready to instruct the Vaidika Brahmana. Pratilomam cha etad yad Brahmana Kshatriyam upeyat. Whatever it is, Brahma me vakshyati iti. You have approached me with the hope that I will teach you Brahman now. Vi evatvad napaishyami. Here again there is a little Vedic grammar. Tva means tubhyam, vignapaishyami. Excuse me for a little Sanskrit sprinkling here. Janami means to know. Napayami or napayami means to make somebody know. Ajatashatru says, I am ready to make you know, let you know, which is nothing but I am ready to instruct you on what Brahma is. But not only Balaki, but Ajatashatru also is full of humility. He doesn't go about the work with some arrogance, rather recognizing I am talking to a man who has come from a family of illustrious Vedic scholars with much love and regard. Like a friend, Ajatashatru holds the hand of Balaki. Panau adaya, holding the hand of Balaki. Ajatashatru says, come with me. Now, rest of the chapter, I must admit honestly, is not so easy to understand by the mantras themselves. And if you take the book of Swami Chidanandendra Saraswathi with Moola Sankara Bashya, Kannada translation with some footnotes and so on, dear friends, the Sankara Bashya with the translation in small letters on this, just this section, 20 mantras, section 1 of second chapter, goes into 100 pages. I almost fainted day before yesterday looking at all the details. Pura Pakshi raising a question and Siddhanti answering it, like Pura Pakshi asking one more question, Siddhanti saying something else. And such hair-splitting arguments, such subtle ways of distinguishing. Distinguishing between what? That is simple.
Hari Om Swamiji. We
Distinguishing
request all of you to
between
stay.
what is conditioned and what is
Now
unconditioned.
you are Swamiji. Your image was frozen and voice was not visible for a few seconds, maybe 10 seconds
Sorry.
or so.
Yeah. Correct. This happened in the morning also. I was into another session.
Okay.
It would just go off for a few seconds.
Now it's fine, Swamiji. Please continue.
Oh, thank you. Thank God. So, in and through the answers of Ajatashatru, the king helps Balaki distinguish between conditioned and unconditioned Brahman. Now, what is the main distinction primarily? You know what? Conditioned means even when there is a trace of doership, even an iota of sense of enjoyership, that is conditioned self. Unconditioned self, as Bhagavad Gita puts it, Naiva kinchit karomi. I am not into any action nor into enjoying or suffering the results thereof. Naham karta, naham bhokta. This is the distinction. Conditioned, there is ego. Unconditioned, there is no ego with respect to either good works or bad works. Na punyam, na papam, na dharmaha, na adharmaha mama, as Nirvana Shatkam would say. So, how does Ajatashatru go about his job? We will see this is like a workshop mode. Rather than just sitting in their chairs and going on with words, Ajatashatru holds the hand of Balaki and says, "Come with me," and they go. In the vast campus of the palace of Ajatashatru, they go to a certain corner where maybe it was already afternoon, 12:30 or so. Some laborer had worked hard and it was a hot day. Madras or Mangalore or Goa or Bombay, it must have been very hot. Not the pleasant weather of Bangalore, which most of you are enjoying. You would not understand Brihadaaranyaka easily. Hot weather. Go to Mangaluru. So hot. So there was a man who had worked hard and then being tired, maybe after eating some food which his wife had packed for him, he sleeps. In some representations of this man is sleeping below a ox cart for shade. Below a bullock cart, there is some shade, and in the shade, he is sleeping. And Ajatashatru calls that man who is deep asleep, "Hare, hello, Brihat." One name that is used to call him is Brihat. "Hello, Pandaravasa." Pandaravasa is a very unusual name. Pandara means white. Vasaha Here means cloth. Vasa. Vasamsi jirnani, as you have in Bhagavad Gita. Pandarani vasansi yasya saha Pandaravasaha. Hey Pandaravasaha, hey white clothed man. And then Soma, O moon, O radiant one, Rajan, Rajati, one who shines. So 3 or 4 names. Even after Ajatashatru says loudly those names, the man doesn't wake up. And the Upanishad mantra just says this, that thereafter Ajatashatru pushes that man with his hand, making his body roll a little bit. Upon doing that, that laborer wakes up and looks at Ajatashatru. Huh? What? Huh? Huh? He wakes up. And the Upanishad mantra says, that was a powerful lesson to Balaki. You and I wonder, what lesson here? So in the elaborate commentaries by Adi Shankara, certain subtle arguments are taken up, which are a bit abstruse and abstract, I must say. But the sum and substance of the whole argument is this kartritva and bhoktritva belong to the sanghata. Sanghata means assemblage. Sanghata means senses, mind, pranas, all those parts coming together. Like in a clock, olden days mechanical clock. So many wheels, so many screws, so many nuts, so many other mechanical parts are all together. Sanghata it is called. Samhanana, coming together. So whatever has come together, it can have, though out of error, a sense of doership. What is never put together is untouched by kartritva bhoktritva. Oh Balaki, those 22 answers you gave for what Brahman is are all about sanghata. There is kartritva bhoktritva there. And upon doing upasana, we rise. Upon missing upasana, we fall. Our spiritual strength, our Brahma Varchas, our Medha Shakti, our moral strength, our physical strength, our ability to face situations. Yesterday, I think the whole country celebrated Subhash Chandra Bose's birthday. Subhash Chandra Bose, great hero. Unfortunately, for various factors, he went to a little bit background and died also. Otherwise, his valor, his decisiveness, his courage, his strength of character, he was able to speak even to M.K. Gandhi on the latter's face. Okay, you want to go by non-violence? Do it, but I am resigning from the Congress party. He just took his Gandhi cap off, placed it before M.K. Gandhi. He took out some kind of badge or some kind of, something on the neck. He took it out and places it before M.K. Gandhi to the shock of M.K. Gandhi. And Subhash Chandra Bose, courageous, convinced of his approach, gently walks away, seeking forgiveness of the elderly man. He had respect for M.K. Gandhi, but he did not agree with Gandhi at all in his approach to get liberation for India. Subhash Chandra Bose had that virtus, that radiance, that courage, as much as, if not more than, what Gandhi had in a different way. And that is what comes with Upasana. My country, my people have to be freed from this slavery at any cost, and so on. He did Upasana, Desha Bhakti Upasana. And Ajatashatru says to Balaki, very good, wonderful, but all these upasanas are for Shakti, not mukti. Viveka Chudamani has an expression, bhuktaye natu muktaye. That is about scholarship. Here, in the context, we would slightly change that expression. Shaktaye natu muktaye. Shakti means in a certain context you will have tremendous power, but that won't last. Mukti is something that transcends time. So, showing how the sleeping man responds when he is pushed in a rather involved manner, the hint is towards where there is kartrutva and bhoktritva, it applies to Sanghata, and Chaitanya Matra has neither kartrutva bhoktritva nor has anything to do with Sanghata. It is not put together, it cannot be dissembled. Neither assembling nor dissembling is possible. And then Ajatashatru takes Balaaki deeper and raises questions about Sushupti, about Swapna, and in all these mantras, 16, 17, 18 and 19, to put it in a summary manner, especially as we dig deep into the whole outlook of Avastatraya Viveka of Upanishads, the message comes across in this way. Really, there is no entity that goes from waking to dream and dream to sleep and sleep to waking, etc. That is childish. Brahma is. Brahma appears. Brahma merely appears. And one of its appearances happens to be waking state. And this waking state with its space, time, causation, with its ahankara, with its manaha, this waking state with its objects and subject, with its distance and nearness, this waking state, lock, stock and barrel, is brought to an end, and dream state appears, rather Brahma appears as dream state. Not even an iota of waking raises its ugly head in dream. Not even a particle of dream raises its ugly or beautiful head in waking. Waking is one appearance of Brahma, and you and I are unable to see this. We, being very fond of our own little theories, because in the phenomenal world, everything has a cause and everything is an effect. So, being very attached to matters of the phenomenal world, we spin a theory that I, in my waking, come across some objects. Then the same I go to dream and see those objects for the second time. This is a favorite theory of an ego so trapped in waking state. Just as a friend of mine in England last week was speaking to me, we reconnected after 24 years or 22 years. He used to come to the evening satsangs in Bombay Ashram, 99, 2000 or so, 98, 99. Then he went away to England. We reconnected. And he was remembering fondly how he used to enjoy the satsangs at Jagadishwara temple in 99, 2000. I also remembered fondly how with him I had gone to Rishikesh, and with him once I had the chance to listen to Baba Swami Ram Sukhadas in Rishikesh, some Gita ashram. Then he shared something with me. Bear with me for those digressions. This Mr. Mishra, settled in United Kingdom for 20 years now, shared something with me. Swamiji, what shall I tell you? My daughter and two sons have gone to school in England, and it has been painful more for me. I said, why? Even as they went to high school, even as they went to college, in the schools and colleges here, it is said by the British teachers, by the British educationists, what? They say, we British people went to nook and corner of the world and we actually taught rest of the world what is culture, what is human values, what is dignified way of living. We taught them. They were all so uncivilized, uncultured. They were all so much in the dark about what human life is, blah, blah, blah. That is what is taught in the schools. And countries like India are talked about by what we call the British-centric angle of view. In mainland Europe, in the continent, there is something called Eurocentric view of the world. Go to Germany, go to Holland, go to France, etc. Once somewhere I went on, made it a long expression. Go to Japan, go to Africa, go to Australia. One member of the audience got up and said to me, Swamiji, we don't want to go. If you want, you go to all those countries. This is just a joke, by the way. Because that expression, go to Japan, go to UK and you will see. It's a very funny expression. Why should a speaker ask the audience to go here and there? If he wants or she wants, let her go. Anyway, so Mr. Mishra told me that it was painful for him and his wife to have children come home and say, today once more the history teacher said India had no civilization, no culture, no all those things, and we the British went and taught them. What a travesty of truth! What a distortion! India had one of the best civilizations. Arts and sciences and spirituality and yoga and Ayurveda and music and culture, you name it, all of them had prospered on this soil. And the British actually tried to break our backbone, in which they failed. But to a little extent, I guess they succeeded. They left us, making us feel, we are no good. We were excellent. Anyway, that was only an analogy. Friends, the serious Vedanta point here is, in the matter of understanding waking and dream, this waking ego, very much like the British man, thinks that he is the authority on everything. The waking ego, arrogates everything to itself. It wants to sit in judgment. It wants to say how dream is formed. In your dream, when you are in dream, would you say the same? When you are in dream, you don't know anything about waking. And when you are in waking, you surmise. You somehow draw some inferences which are very questionable. Therefore, the deeper understanding of Vedanta is not about finding one more theory of cause and effect between waking and dream. It is rather to help us do apavada, negate waking and the waking ego, negate dream and the dream ego, negate the space, time and causation of waking as one bundle, negate the space, time and causation of dream as a separate bundle unconnected with the bundle of space, time and causation of waking. And lastly, what about Sushupti? There also this waking ego has spun its own theories. There is vasana, there is ignorance, there is avidya, there is this, there is that, there is a causal body. Rama Rama. So much of spicing up was done. Just like the Europeans called India no other than snake charmers, utterly superstitious people, idolaters, idol worshippers, and they are really, they needed to be re-educated. Today, a lot of Europeans are able to, finally, they are able to understand the Upasana methods of India, where hills are worshipped, rivers are worshipped. Yes, it is not stupidity, it is rather a broadness of mind. To worship nature is not lack of intelligence. To worship nature, to worship trees, to worship even certain animals, to look at cow as a special creature, special creation of God, has tremendous meaning in it, and they are now realizing. Likewise, friends, we will realize that in deep sleep, thank God, we are not expressing ourselves as any ego or any ego created bundle of space, time, and causation. We are what we truly are in deep sleep. In Sushupti, Chandogya Upanishad says, Sata Sampannaha Bhavati. You and I are completely with Sat. We are as Sat. We are Sat. Sata Sampannaha Bhavati Sushuptau. Beautiful is this insight, and rather than getting lost in some complicated theories, this outlook helps you rise from the conditioned to the unconditioned, to the causation to the uncaused, to something limited by space and time, to that which is never touched by space and time at one go. At one go, realization is one step. Awakening is a quantum leap in the true sense of the word. That is conveyed by Ajatashatru in rather difficult words. He talks about 72,000 nadis through which energy flows. That is all adhyaropa. That is deliberate superimposition. The truth of the whole matter, let me say this and conclude, is at the end of this first section of second chapter of the Brihadaaranyaka Upanishad, it is said, Prana vai satyam, tesham esha satyam. This comes at the end of the second Brahmana also. And then third Brahmana has a few other points. And the fourth Brahmana is the celebrated Maitreyi Yadnavalkya Samvada. Pranavai Satyam, Tesham Esha Satyam comes not at the end of second Brahmana, end of third Brahmana. So first Brahmana and third Brahmana, they end with the statement Pranavai Satyam, Tesham Esha Satyam. This is a wonderful statement. Prana here represents vital airs, conditioned person, conditioned entity, Sangata Sthita Chaitanyam, and it is as well a commentary on whole Dvaita Siddhanta. The entire Dvaita Siddhanta, glorious in a certain way, stops with Pranaha, Pranaha Satyam. Advaita says, wait a minute, that is not the ultimate Satya. Pranaha Satyam, Yesha Atma, Tesham Satyam. Prananamapi Satyam. So prana is symbolic, prana is representative of a whole lot of. Somebody says money is truth in modern materialistic world. Somebody says power is truth. I once heard a mother in Kolkata whose son was in ninth grade at that time. She said with eyes sparkling, my son is studying very well. And you know my dream. I said, what is your dream? I want my son to be a doctor. Isn't it great to have our son becoming a doctor? Shiva Shiva. There are so many doctors, dime a dozen as they call. And are their lives fulfilled? But that young mother, for her, Dr. Vai Satyam, she could not see beyond having her son becoming a doctor. Some people think going abroad, end of the story. Some people, I don't have to give more and more examples. In this world, in the worldly materialistic sphere and in the so-called spiritual sphere, people have countless notions about what is the ultimate, most desirable. Ativa apekshaniyam kim tad vishaye janaha bhrantaha santi. But Brihadaaranyaka Upanishad at the end of this Pratamam Brahmanam of Dvitiyaha Adhyayaha brings the hammer down saying, make a long list of what you hold as supreme. We'll put them all together and say, Prana vai satyam, yesha tesham satyam. This is the satyasya satyam. Satyasya satyaha sudhiyaiva gamyaha. Namo namaste Swamine Tapovanaya. In Tapovana Stuti, we have this expression of Brihadaaranyaka built into that. Vyaptam jagadyena chidatma bhavat rajvayatahir characharam yat. Tapovana Shatkam, 6 verses on Swami Tapovanam. There is this expression. Satyasya satyaha sudhiyaiva gamyaha parat param and so on. Beautiful composition, very Vedantic. Satyasya satyaha. A million things are looked at as satya and people want go after it. Vedanta smiles and says, if all of them are satya, what we are talking of is satyasya satyam. Prana vai satyam, tesham esha satyam. What a punchline. And we have reason to believe that the ignorance of Balaaki was torn to pieces. Balaaki gets enlightened. Balaaki is illumined thanks to this very effective discourse by Ajatashatru, whose name means someone who has no enemy at all. Brahmanishta has no enemies. Even if somebody approaches a Brahmanishta with a dagger in hand, the Brahmanishta will be able to see that man with eyes of love. Then do whatever, maybe slap him on the face or maybe run, maybe that is a different issue. But the heart of Brahmanishta will not have fear or hatred or horror, etc. Why should he? Somebody coming towards him is also Brahma. He himself also is Brahma. Ajatashatru. Na jataha shatruhu yasya saha Ajatashatru. Yudhishthira was also called Ajatashatru. This is not Yudhishthira here. Here it is certain king of Kashi named Ajatashatru. Friends, let me admit, I could not really bring out the subtleties of Sankara Bashya for the simple reason I could not study in so much detail. But I promise Vani and Vasudev, I will come back with this topic another time, studying every word of those 100 pages in Swami Chidananda Saraswathi's beautiful translation and tippanis. I will try to digest what is said over there and distill it for the sake of all of you. Namah Paramarashibhyo, Namah Paramarashibhyah.